Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, March 12th, and we are on our new time now because they go on daylight savings time on the East Coast. And this program is technically, the platform is tecn.tv. They're on the East Coast, and so we run along with their time frame. So we will now be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of every week. So I hope the hour earlier doesn't affect your ability to be able to watch the show. Today, we've got a super incredible guest. We have Sheriff Mark Danells from Cochise County. He's going to be joining us. He's driving on his way to the sheriff conference back east somewhere, but he is going to join us. It may be audio only, but have a lot of issues and situations that I want to talk to him about. And he's just an incredible, he's an incredible sheriff in the state of Arizona that we should be very, very proud to have representing us. And I know that I am proud. I've been down there many, many times, and well, 3 or 4 times, and spoke to him and talked to him about the programs and the different things that he's doing down in Cochise County. And it was really incredible because back when Trump was in office, he was able to work with the county attorney there in Cochise County, and they were prosecuting these young men who the cartel was recruiting, some of them as old as 13 and 14 years old, 15 years old, because the cartel thought that the United States wouldn't prosecute minors. But Sheriff Danells worked closely with the county attorney there in Cochise County, and they were actually prosecuting these young boys and if they were running drugs for the cartel, they were going to be in jail for a minimum of a year. So the cartel really didn't like that Sheriff Danells was digging into their profits and their ability to conduct business. And so they kind of moved their business further to the west in Arizona and crossed in a different county. So Sheriff Danells was able to really make a difference there in Cochise County. And I know a lot of the ranchers and the people that live down in that area, they appreciated the fact that he was such a hard worker and a constitutional type sheriff. Followed the law. He's been back to DC many, many times, met with Trump many times. He's a part of the sheriff's organization, National Sheriff's Organization, that are of a conservative mindset and understand the importance of law and order, of closed borders, of proper vetting of people coming into our country. So he is a stand-up guy. And he worked a lot with Trump under that administration. He's been up here into Phoenix to the Capitol and spoken to the legislators many, many times. And he recently was up here talking about HB 2748, which was the immigration bill that the Republicans got through the House and the Senate here in Arizona, got it to veto queen Governor Katie Hobbs' desk, and she promptly vetoed it. And what it was doing was making it a state law that if you cross the border from Mexico into the state of Arizona, anywhere but at a port of entry, that you could be arrested and charged with illegally trespassing and go to jail or be deported back to Mexico. And I want to discuss this with Sheriff Danells and see how he feels about this, but it doesn't make any sense to me why anybody, and look, at this point of the game, we got to throw politics out of it. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a libertarian, if you're an independent. I don't care if you're a Republican. Parties, or a political party should have no part in decision-making when it comes to illegal immigration and keeping our country safe from unvetted criminals. Keeping our country safe from these people who are coming from third world countries. They've never been vaccinated against anything. There's measles outbreaks in different parts of the country right now, folks. They're bringing diseases to our country that we have not seen here for quite a while. So those are the types of things that we need to make sure are not on party lines. We need to start voting and make sure that our politicians stand up and vote about illegal immigration as an American, period. Party lines play no place in this. We've got Sheriff Mark Danells from Cochise County. He's joining us now. We're going to get him on here because he's on the road and I don't want to hold him up. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Marianne. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Stopped in Oklahoma. I'm away
Oh,
to Missouri here.
much for joining us.
Thank.
I was just kind of telling the viewers, what you did down in Cochise County during Trump's administration and being able to work with your county attorney and bring those young drug runners, to face the law and know that Cochise County wasn't a place to mess with. And Sheriff Mark Danells certainly wasn't anybody to mess with. But how has it changed for you since the Biden administration has taken over?
Well, thanks, Marianne. Thanks for the nice words. And one thing about I'm fortunate to have a citizenship in Cochise County, Arizona, that truly cares for us, cares for the rule of law. It's a military-based community too. I being former military myself, but so I got some blessings there that some other places don't have. But what we have done, working with the county attorney's office and their proactive approach too, and our law enforcement partners, is we've gone after the cartel and we've made the rule of law a well-known commodity in their world to include consequences if they break it. And so the last 2 years, actually last 3 years, we've seen the slippery slope. But over the last 2 years, we really started keeping a good eye on our stats. We put 2,884 people in our jail for border-related crimes. These are not immigration issues. These are border-related crimes, state crimes, all the way up to murder, double-digit murders. And that includes 400 some pursuit drivers, 566 smugglers that are driving cars that we caught our hands on. I mean, you name it, from misdemeanor up to felony. 100 juveniles from all over the country, not just Arizona. It's sad to see that because they're changing lives every day as the Biden administration avoids what the reality of this border. So we've done a lot. We've worked really well with our state partners. It's cost me $9.4 million, Marianne, just in detention costs. That equates to 44% of all my crime in Cochise County up to is border related right now. In my 40-year career, I've seen the good, the bad, and ugly of this border. This is the ugliest I've ever seen it. And that's because this president and 51% of Congress fails to address it.
Well, and it's amazing because we are a country of laws and we have a constitution. We've got federal laws, we've got state laws. Of course, when it comes to illegal immigration, the federal government really wants to fetter the state's ability to protect themselves. And that's what we're facing right now. But isn't it amazing? And this is what people need to understand. When you're in that voting booth and who you're voting for can make a difference, like what has happened under Trump and under Biden when it comes to border issues. Even though the laws are the same, you have somebody who gets in there and starts signing executive orders or canceling out previous executive orders and then nominating the most unbelievable people to head Department of Homeland Security, who will turn a blind eye and has no problem lying straight to the people who he's supposed to be answering to, Congress. So that voting is a very heavy responsibility. And as I'm door knocking, because I'm running for Arizona State Representative up here in LD9, as I'm door knocking, I'm hearing so many people say, Mark, I'm so fed up with politics. I just don't know that I'm going to vote. We need your voice now. Because
that is
if not, Sheriff Mark Danells and Cochise County is going to go down in flames, right?
Well, you're exactly right. And take that to the 3,000 counties in this country are going to go down in flames. It's not just Cochise. It's not just your respective community. It's all of this country. And I said this before, President Biden and his administration, they want an open border. They have placed this country in harm's way. Director Reyes from the FBI just spoke on this about the vulnerabilities we are facing right now. It's not going to get better. We all know that. So elections is what's going to change this. President Biden's not going to change it. He has no engagement. He has no will, and he has no operational plan to change it back. Everything else now is political rhetoric as this election's up this year. But we have to change that. The people need to get the country back. If not, the return on this is going to be devastating for this country.
Right. And, Arizona voted in a Democratic governor, the veto queen herself. And I know that the House and the Senate, the slight majority that the Republican conservatives have over in Phoenix, they voted HB 2748, which is Senate Bill, I think 1231, which would make it a state crime for people to cross over the border anywhere but at a port of entry in Arizona. And our governor vetoed that, and that's what I was talking about when you were able to come into the studio. This shouldn't be a party line issue, because this is about the safety and the protection of the American people, the very people who voted these people into office, these legislators, and their oath that they took to protect us is completely being ignored.
Well, and you're exactly right on that, Marianne, and the fact that public safety should never be politicized. When you politicize public safety, which is the rule of law, you've muddied communities, you've fractured communities, and that's what's happened in a lot of our urban areas throughout the United States. It's highlighted all throughout the country in these urban communities that have fractured police, fractured their ability to do their job. Arizona is unique. We're on the bubble both ways. I've dealt with Governor Hobbs numerous times. We don't always see eye to eye when it comes to how we're addressing things. But right now, all I have left, Marianne, is our state. The federal government, and I say this all the time, has intellectually avoided us and has abandoned us on the border and abandoned our state. So I continue to discuss with Governor Hobbs' staff, the governor, our state legislative folks. We need to stand united right now, because right now that $9.4 million for Arizona just in Cochise County detention costs, right now the state's helping me pay for that. I've asked for an extension on that. I've asked for some more relief on our border operations because that's funded through the state. So we're going to continue. I got a congressional hearing from the state coming down this weekend that we're going to talk more about this. I got a meeting come up with the governor to have a heart-to-heart about this, because we need the state as much as the state needs us. It's a win-win situation as long as we're all working together. And we're going to keep pushing this, absent the politics on it. But the public safety and the people are most important.
Well, and I feel and I think about this so often, Mark, not only, you on a sheriff and a deputy level, but on a local police department level, and especially as a Border Patrol agent. And it's a calling. I was speaking to somebody when I was door knocking the other day. He was retired sheriff's office. And we were talking about how it's a calling to do this sort of work that you do, to put a uniform on, knowing the dangers that you're going to face every day. Not everybody can do that. The biggest majority of Americans could never even fathom putting on a uniform and going out there and facing criminals in our community. But how frustrating it must be when you are hogtied like this and unable to do the exact thing that your gut tells you you're putting on that uniform to go do.
It amazes me that, our forefathers got to be turning in their graves, watching what's going on in this country right now. But more important is the fact that law and order is what made this country great. It truly is. The ability to follow the norms of society, and those that are not are held with a consequence. And to fracture that or take that off the table for some political ideology is harming this country. And we have to stay a course. And anybody that's running for office, they got to be asked that question. Do you support the rule of law? Do you support public safety, police officers, sheriff's deputies, troopers, and federal agents? They're out there truly trying to make our communities better, because these are our neighbors too. And the people say no, or they have a different answer. My opinion is strong. Don't elect them.
Right. Now, you did something in the recent past where you teamed up with Department of Public Safety, DPS here in Arizona, right? The state troopers.
We've
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've always had a good relationship with our troopers. They work very well with us. But what we partnered up with was our Arizona Sheriff Association. So I had sheriffs from all over the state come to my county and work alongside my deputies, and to go after the interdiction for smuggling, for narcotics, fentanyl, human smuggling, human trafficking. We went after it. If there's a border crime nexus to it, we're going after it. And having sheriff's deputies down here on the border working alongside my deputies for the good of the state, not just my county, but the good of the state. Because if we can stop it on the front line, it's not in your backyard, it's not in the community's backyards, and it's not beyond the states of Arizona. That's how you do it. That's how you get it done. And the state actually helped me pay for those costs, those overtime costs for those other deputies. Again, we have to work together. Our oath of office says that we will serve the people, and the biggest oath in all of it, whether state, local, or federal, is to protect this country and the people within our citizens.
Right. Now, do we have any other states that are sending their sheriffs or troopers or anything here to Arizona to help out at the border, Mark?
We don't. Now, we've had some other ones come. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had Florida, I've had Ohio, Georgia, New York was just here. I mean, so we have sheriffs from all over the country coming here and their people to see what we're doing, because we're doing a lot of innovative, from a border operations center, human trafficking, smuggling, financial crimes. And the more that we can integrate with our partners throughout the country, the better chance we have of tackling and beating down the cartels. And I truly mean that when it comes to intel, when it comes to operational debriefs, you name it, to interdiction. I was just on the phone with Florida last week doing some things. So we're doing a lot of really cool things, not trying to get too deep in the weeds here, but trust me, we're getting smarter as the cartels push their will. We're getting smarter to make sure our tactics are matching that and overcoming that.
I can't imagine what the law enforcement from New York is thinking. I mean, they're coming all the way down to the border. They're at ground zero, and they're seeing where this all starts. And then they go back home, and they have to probably think about everything those people go through to end up in New York, and how many of them cross the border with New York as their destination. And they must go back with a complete different mindset. How do they react when they're working with you? Are they like, holy crap, we didn't know it was like this? Or are they, have they envisioned that's what it's like?
A little bit of both, Marianne, a little bit of both. I mean, and to isolate the comment, your statement there, the urban areas, New York City, for example, is totally different than the rest of the state in so many ways. And that's the disclaimer. We identify our states by population. Phoenix, for example, is known for Arizona. But that's not the totality of our state. And our rural parts of our country are doing an amazing job in policing. Urban parts, and those that wear a badge, do an amazing job. It's the bureaucrats in those urban areas that are fracturing it. New York City, for example, with Mayor Adams back there, I mean, this man wore a badge. They've incentivized the migrants to come across the border legally to come to their city, and now they say, now give us more money. All you're doing is making a money pit out of it. Either we manage this process, we manage these urban areas, and we work together with rural America. Otherwise, it's only going to continue to be divisive, be fractured, and nothing's getting solved. So again, I call out Mayor Adams, Mayor Bowser, the Denver mayor, all the people that are sitting there going, yeah, it's okay to come here. We're a sanctuary city, but you got to help us. No, either you do it or you don't.
Right. And now we've got this sentiment going on with so many people. And Mark, I spend a lot of my day researching and reading and looking into things that are going on. And I'm really surprised at the mindset of so many people, elected officials, and just activists who are out there, and how they feel about how these illegals are treated as they come into our country illegally. And they will bend over backwards to apologize to them for using the term illegal or illegal immigrant or illegal alien. Of course, that is completely thrown out, although the courts have upheld illegal alien is in fact the right wording to use, but that they will bend over backwards to apologize to these people, and the victims of illegal alien crime are just left in the dust. And it's leaving, I've known this for, in May, it's going to be 10 years since my son was killed. I've known this for almost 10 years. I know this atmosphere, this feeling, this, just shut up and go away. And we're going to cancel culture you. I've been on the receiving end of that many, many times. But Trump gave us the opportunity to step up and tell the American people exactly what happened to our families. But now elected officials and activists are bending over backwards to protect the feelings of these illegal criminals who come in here, murderers, rapists, career criminals who come from their country as criminals and show up here and continue to commit crimes here. Why do you think they have the need to apologize to these people?
Well, they don't, Marianne. Let me just say they don't. I mean, when you put and you look at this young aspiring nursing student, Riley out of Georgia, that her life in a way too short, the hands of an illegal. I'll say it. It's illegal. He came in the country. He was illegally here. It's not about sensitivity of the words. It's about the reality of somebody's family. An American family is going through hell right now, and our president apologizes for using the word illegal.
Yeah.
I think it's back ass words. You got to put America first. You truly do. And the reason we're having these problems in this country is we're working victimization to everything except for this country. When every kid goes to bed with a full belly, when veterans are taken care of and are off the streets, those willing to be off
Amen.
the streets and those that need the help, and every American is being taken care of, I'm all about it. I'm about humanitarian. I really am. I have no issue with it. But let's not put our country second or even beyond that. We need to always make our country first because we're Americans first.
Well, and I've got a neighbor who they are an illegal family, but they are contributing members of society. They've been here for decades. One of their daughters served in the military, went into the army. And those are the people that Congress and the government and the Biden administration and Mayorkas and anybody else who's involved in this invasion, that is who these people should be concentrating on, is the immigrants, illegals who've been here for decades, who've proven themselves. They're not a drain on our welfare programs. They work. My neighbors own businesses. I want to help those type of people to become American citizens. They don't need asylum at this point, but to speed up the process for those kinds of people, because there's millions of those types of people living in our country already who are proud to be here and want to be an American citizen. And I'm tired of helping the next Susie and Joe who come over the border and think that they are the next best thing besides sliced bread and they need our help, and quit calling them illegals. Those people don't want to become citizens.
No, let me just say this. There's legal immigration, and I think there's not a person in this country who wouldn't argue with me on this. Do it legally. Do
Right.
it legally. Come through a port of entry, file the proper paperwork, become a citizen, and take the honor in being a citizen. Other countries, you got to go through all this process. We have now opened the gates. And one thing I've done very strong, and I've said it very loudly in Cochise County, is we're holding those gates closed as much as I can with the authority I have as a sheriff. Because once the gates are open here in Cochise County, I won't be able to close them again. So we're doing everything we can. But citizenship shouldn't come through a stamp at the border. It should not come through that. It needs to go through a process, a due process. You earn the right to be a citizen here. And when you earn it, you take pride in it to be an American. That's what I'm saying. But we've set all that aside to do it another way. And I hate to say it, it's politicized.
Right. And if these lawmakers in DC would understand, if you made the process and the cost of becoming an American citizen less expensive to where these people could afford it. I mean, hell, the Biden administration is willing to spend $451 billion to support the illegals that are coming into our country. Why don't you cut down on the cost of the people who've lived here forever to make their presence legal in America, and stop the illegal incentives?
Well, I continue to say, first thing we got to do is secure the border. We got to
Well,
secure the
yes,
border.
yes.
You got to secure this border. And then let's get the Democrats off their butts, get the Republicans off their butts, independents looking both ways, and let's fix this. We truly need to fix it. But until that's fixed, let's follow the rule of law. The rule of law can fix this. Title 8 says you come across illegally, you're immediately expelled. We've set that law aside. President Biden made a comment at the State of the Union tonight. He goes, give me the funding and I'll fix it. You have more than the funding. You have the power of the people in a law called Title 28 that fixes it immediately if you'll take the will and prioritization to do it. The border could be stopped. President Trump already did it. He could do it too, but he doesn't have the will.
Well, and we've had a judge just recently rule that Biden has got to stop reallocating the money that was set aside by Congress to build border wall, has told him you have to stop doing that. That money can only be used to build border wall. But this is how our government works in this country. You know, where is the $451 billion coming to support this illegal invasion in our country? Congress hasn't allocated that money from anywhere. Are they dipping into Social Security? Was he dipping into the wall fund? That's the things we don't know about this administration. They're so crooked and just not in the best interest of America.
Well, they're not engaged, Marianne, and we've
Right.
said that as sheriff, national sheriffs. They're not engaged with communities. Like I said in this recent Senate bill, everybody forgot HR 2. HR 2 was a bill to secure the border. That was set aside by Senate as it was passed by the House. House passes a bill, it goes to the Senate, they sit on it. Now the House is being blamed. Republican, Democrats, shame on both of you on this. I'm just going to say it how it is. I'm talking about the 51% there because we got some good congressional people that see the need to secure our border. And I've talked to many of them. But the reality is, there is no prioritization. There is no will by this White House to secure our border. And as long as that stays in place, we're vulnerable every day. And every day that goes by, a life is changing in a negative way. In November, if you want an open border, President Biden's your guy. If you want a secure border and protect our communities from fentanyl poisonings and all the tragedies come with it, secure our border and let's do this right. There ain't no other way to go.
Have you seen an increase in human trafficking in Arizona since they shut down Shelby Park and did what they're doing there in Texas?
I can say this, human trafficking goes on our border every day. There's a real fine line between smuggling, which is defined by consensual, non-consensual, and trafficking. Very fine line. These people are paying their life savings to be smuggled or trafficked by the cartels. A lot of them don't have it, which means they become servant to these cartels. When people say, well, they're just smuggled, they're not trafficked. They're going to communities and they're governed by the cartels every day for sex trafficking, drug distribution, enforcement, gangs, you name it. It's not the American dream that you and I and many that we know live every day. So I call it modern day slavery. And it's amazing. Any elected official, state, local, and federal, would turn their back on people and kids shoved in the back of a car going 100 miles an hour or going to a house to be distributed throughout the United States. I just have a hard time believing that an elected official in this country, anywhere, Republican, Democrat, Independent, state, local, or federal, would turn their back and say, "Oh, it's not what it is. It's truly what it is. It's inhumane in every aspect."
Amen. I say that all the time. This isn't a party issue,
No,
party line issue. This is about human dignity. And
that's right.
although they think that open borders is helping these people out, the tragedies and the things that are happening, and I follow Ben Berkwin, and he's been in the Darien Gap now for 3 or 4 or 5 times, and we're the climate change people because they've absolutely trashed a jungle. And this is such a bigger picture because you've got the United Nations, you've got all these organizations that are funding this. And in essence, it's to redistribute the wealth of the United States and bankrupt us. It's projected $774 billion will leave our country in 2024 in remittances that these illegals will be sending home to their families. And this is sad, but I don't want to keep you. I mean, I know this is an hour show, but I know you're on the road, Mark. I just
Right.
want to ask you a couple more questions. When I was over in Texas, I talked to Michael Banks and we had a great conversation, and he was telling me about SB 4 and how they had really looked into SB 1070 as a guiding post for them. And so I was talking to him and I said, if we got the sheriffs to arrest the bus drivers, how many bus drivers would they be able to hire to bring these people from the border up to Sky Harbor and stuff? And he goes, it's something to look into. But the further I looked into it, when SB 1070 was going through the courts, they made an agreement. Then Governor Jan Brewer and Attorney General Tom Horn made an agreement with the federal government. You leave the part of SB 1070 in there that says, show me the papers, basically is what they've dubbed it. And we won't arrest anybody transporting illegals in the state of Arizona. This happened in 2014, Mark, and it was signed by a federal judge as a court order. Did you know that?
I didn't know the specifics. I know Sheriff Deaver, my predecessor, he was instrumental with Russell Pierce and many other ones that put that bill together. And I mean, bless his heart, he worked his butt off on getting that to protect this state and this country. And I don't have the specific dates, but I know by the time the high court shredded it like cheese, there's not much left to it, as you already know.
No, there's only 2 things that the high courts took out. And Oh, I've got the article, but I don't want to pull it up because I know you need to go. But there's only two issues out of the whole SB 1070 that the high courts took out. And this is a misconception that a lot of people have, that the court wiped out SB 1070. There's so much more that stands. But I was under the impression that the arrest and for transporting illegals in our state was still a part of it. But then to find out, Jan Brewer and Tom Horn made this agreement with the federal government, and then we ended up having to pay $1.4 million out of the state did to cover the cost of the ACLU and different organizations' attorney fees that were suing us. And so I was asking a current legislator, having a conversation with her and saying, because in that court order it says no one will appeal this. Well, she said it only pertains to the people who sign that. So I said, so the legislation could bring this up again, which Wendy Rogers was trying to do last year. And the Democrats were throwing a cow saying, it's just going to bring it all up for SB 1070 again, and we're going to be drug into court. But do you think, Mark, that the courts and the judge may look at this differently 10 years later with the atmosphere and the circumstances that we're seeing with this open border versus what was happening 10 years ago? What's your
because personal opinion is it could go either way. It could go because it's more politicized now than it's ever been, and it's more divided. So I can see it going where no, they don't want to hear it. Then again, I could see some spirit behind it with everything going on as they put more teeth into it. We get the legal briefs, and that's where I speak back to you when I say about it's been shredded, is the fact that we have reasonable detention until told otherwise. And that's coming through our legal folks, our liability folks, the insurance companies that address law enforcement in the state of Arizona. And these guys are very good, these guys and gal attorneys. But there's a lot of subjectivity to it, like what you're hitting on right now, very much so, because they could define it maybe. But I just don't see it going that way until this, especially in a presidential year where everybody's like, hey, stay away, let's see what happens in the country. It's so divided. If President Trump gets reelected, I could see this moving forward. I could. Right now with President Biden, I don't. That's just my opinion. I don't see it. Nobody wants to shake the tree right now until they find out exactly what's going to happen in November.
Well, and this legislator that I was speaking to also told me they were on the edge of their seats, when the governor race was going on, because they were getting all sorts of illegal immigration bills ready, anticipating that Kari Lake was going to be our governor. And, that was all shot down, and it's just like a big deflated balloon. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. It's because of who we've elected as to what the atmosphere is turned into and what will be vetoed, what will be passed. We have to have the right people in office. So
I agree.
I am so thankful that you are a sheriff in my state of Arizona. And I know that the people of Cochise County love you, Mark. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time on your trip to the Sheriff's Association. Is it the national meeting?
No, I just got back from Nationals is coming up again, but I got back from Western States last week in Reno, Nevada. I'm heading to the Missouri State Sheriff's Association. I'm on the executive board for Western States. So we attend these state sheriff meetings and embrace them. And then I'm addressing them on Thursday about the border. So I'm going out there for this. But Mary, if I just close out and say this to you, is we as Americans can't give up hope. We just got to get smarter. We can't lose our balance, and we got to walk united, and we can get this back.
Thank you, Mark. God bless you. And please drive safe the rest of your trip. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
God bless you. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. It's such a pleasure to have him. I've gone down to Cochise County a couple times, and once I had my camera set up on the tripod, and I did a great interview with him. This was probably 5 years ago, but he takes the time for people, and he's driving to Missouri, and he pulled off on the side of the road to take the time and talk with us, and because he knows how important this is, that we get the proper information from the sheriffs and the law enforcement that are right down on the border. But I've just really had a lot of respect for him ever since I've met him. I've just really, really been happy and thankful for the people in Cochise County that they do have a sheriff like this, because they're all these sheriffs along the border, they're not all like this. I mean, we've got a sheriff who's a complete liberal in the Nogales area and does not feel that any of this type of rhetoric or this talk or that we should be securing the border or stopping people from coming over. Look, if things could go back to normal, because I know a lot of areas in Texas are affected because they are border states. And I know in El Paso, because I was down there quite a lot when We Build the Wall was building the wall right out of El Paso at Sunland Park, but we'd go into El Paso a lot. And the traffic coming over the footbridge that people would come across from Mexico to shop, to get groceries, to get clothes, maybe even to eat lunch at their favorite, U.S. Restaurant. And they would go back over. So I understand the importance of commerce, but when you've got it to the point where people are just breaking over and coming over the border in unsecured locations, unfortunately, that causes things from having to be shut down. And it affects, these small border towns that do have people from Mexico come over to shop there. They have better selections and probably better quality of a lot of things than from the small border towns in Mexico that they live in. So we've got to come to a happy medium. But first of all, we have to have the right elected officials in place in DC who can work together, cross party lines, and understand that the safety of the citizens and the oath that they took is more important than the feelings of these people illegally entering our country and their big push and their huge concern for hurting their feelings. Has the administration or any of these Democratic officials in Congress and the Senate in DC, have they ever stopped to think about how their silence is a slap in the face to families of victims of illegal crime? How's that? And I would love to say to Biden, you want to talk so much, and he does it with any opportunity that he can to talk about the death of his son. Provide me that same opportunity. Let me tell you about the death of my son, Sergeant Brandon Mendoza of the Mesa Police Department, and what a huge asset he was to our community. Let me tell you about him, Joe. Let me show you some pictures of him. And then let me tell you that the very thing that you're promoting and encouraging right now is the reason that my son was killed 10 years ago when you were vice president. So these people who love to hear themselves talk and even misquote and tell you a different reason of why their child was killed or how it's affected them. I mean, Biden's story has changed a few times, but what makes him think that anybody wants to hear that story? He doesn't want to hear anybody else's story. He really doesn't want to hear Lake and Riley's family story. He can't even pronounce her name properly. And then they're tripping all over themselves because he said illegals kill thousands of people in the United States, which I posted that on Facebook, by the way, and I got fact checked. And USA Today says he never said that. And yet they quote what he says, and he says thousands of Americans are killed by illegals. What's up with this fact-checking stuff? Because then you saw the confusion and the walkbacks and everything, and the White House saying he's not apologizing for saying that. And then he's apologizing for saying that 2 hours later on a news program or outside the White House as he's being questioned by reporters. He was even questioned, are you going to do anything like executive orders with the border? Oh, I'm just hoping that the border thing takes care of itself. Something to that effect. And then mumbled something about Congress. That type of a bill that you put forward, Biden, is going to sit and, rot in. I mean, I know the House passed it on to the Senate, but no, the House hasn't passed it. But that type of bill is not going to move forward when it's got all kinds of pork attached to it. And I will go back to what I've said before on other podcasts that I've been on and hosted, and then this one. What we really need to be pushing for in DC, the legislators in DC, is one issue bills. For gosh sakes, a lot of them aren't going to vote for that because they're going to have to work, because they're going to have to hear more bills, aren't they? But when you allow these crooked politicians to put together a border security bill, and the bill has more money being spent in Ukraine or for some butterfly project or this, that, and the other thing, and then the amount spent on the border issue in the United States is a fraction of what's going out into other pet projects. That is not the way, and to allow a bill's title to be misleading like that. It's misleading the American public and allowing the liberal media to be able to say the Republicans won't pass the border protection bill, border security bill, because that's not what it is, folks. I just wish more people would get engaged and understand exactly what's happening in this political realm in the United States. Yes, it's ugly, and yes, Republicans and Democrats fight, and Republicans fight Republicans, and oh wait, you don't see Democrats fighting Democrats, but you see Republicans fighting Republicans. But that isn't really the big story. These people go to DC and they become lazy, and they've done it, and it's a big feather in their hat that they can say, I'm a congressional member in DC, a federal, a U.S. congressional member. They make good salaries. They get on a plane every week and fly back there and come back home. But what is your goal? And these are the things that we need to be questioning these candidates about. What is the biggest thing that you want to see changed in the United States? What can you do as my congressman representing Arizona? What can you go to DC and do? What's going to be your shiny moment? Well, we're going to go back there. We're going to make sure that the border gets secured, and, we need to end inflation. How are you going to do that? What ideas do you have about securing the border? What ideas do you have about ending inflation, lowering inflation? What ideas do you have with A? What ideas do you have for B? What ideas, or how are you going to accomplish C? Don't let them just have talking points and like every politician does. Make them tell you how they're going to make that change, what type of bill they would bring forward. We've got a great congressional candidate here in Arizona in Congressional District 4, Jerome Davison, and his big thing is he's going to go back to DC, and he wants to do an internet bill of rights to protect the rights of people on the internet, in the World Wide Web. And to listen to him talk about that, this man has thought deep and hard about how this is affecting lives, how this is affecting our future. And this is a big deal, folks. So this is what you need to start questioning your candidates on. Don't let them just give you a list and a litany of, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this. How are you going to accomplish it? That's the big question behind their answer. And the reason why I have such respect for these sheriffs in the United States, like Mark Lamb, like Mark Danells, like Sheriff Wilmot in Yuma, these guys and the constitutional sheriffs across the United States, the National Sheriff's Association, I've gone to many of their meetings and met with a lot of them, and they are incredible men who understand our constitutional rights. They're the last line of defense in this country. The sheriffs are. guess what? Politicians can't tell them what to do. The city council can't tell them what to do. They are elected by the people. They are not just like a police officer who goes through an academy, the police academy, gets hired by a particular city, and now they are an employee of the city, and they are under the thumb and the rule of the mayor and the city council of that city. So the mayor and the city council can make up the rules and tell the police departments how they're going to operate. Sheriffs operate completely different. They're elected by the people, and they have a set of rules to go by. And guess what it is? The constitutional rights that we have, and state laws and local laws, and they know what they are. And they know when we have a bad administration and people making bad decisions regarding things like the border that are going to affect everybody across this country. And like Mark Danells said earlier, they've got law enforcement from all over the country that have come here and helped. And I'm sure they go back home like a lot of these congressional members who've never been down to the border, and they come down here with Andy Biggs. He brings them monthly, I think, or at least every other month, brings them down here on a trip so that the members who have never been down here can come. And Andy's kind enough. He gets a hold of me, and I go and meet up with them their last dinner before they all head home, and have conversations with them and meet these people. But a lot of them who've never been here before to say to me, we just can't even believe it's worse than we thought. Oh my gosh, they go back with a completely different perspective. So that's why I was asking Mark Lamb, and he said, it happens both ways. Some of them come here, the law enforcement from other states, and they're like shocked as to what it's like on the front lines. And others of them are like, yeah, we figured it was like this. But, I bet a lot of the officers in law enforcement in New York probably come here and say, oh, this is nothing compared to what we deal with in New York, with all the stories that we've been hearing about the crime that illegals are committing in New York. I mean, that these illegals will just beat up a couple of police officers in Times Square. Whoever would have thought that would be a headline story? Whoever thought that would have been in the realm of possibilities? NYPD, as strong and as that comes across to everybody as, the biggest and the best police department, considering the melting pot that New York already was before this invasion started, but the amount of people, the tourists that come through there, and everything that the NYPD deals with. But I think that a lot of them feel that they've been brought to their knees, because the wants and needs and protection of illegal criminals is foremost in our elected official minds than law enforcement rights and protection, American citizen rights and protection. Where has this gone off the rails? It's because, and I've said this before on my podcast, for those of you who haven't, I don't know how, but my campaign email got onto the Democratic Party mailing list. And so it goes into my spam folder, but you guys, it's every single day from Scott Dworkin and several PACs that the Democratic Party is running. And it's got to be 50 to 60 emails a day. And it's constant, the same message. Donate. We got to get rid of Republicans. Donate. Even if it's $5 a month on a reoccurring payment, they encourage everybody to do that. Well, if you got, 2 million people doing $5 a month on a recurring basis, that adds up to a lot of money. But to see how they operate and what a machine they have going on is incredible. They don't, and this is the one thing, the Democrats come together. you don't see these public fights that are happening. Well, the disagreements and the ruffled feathers isn't brought probably to the forefront as much as it is with the Republican Party. I'm sure there's things that go on. And I was really surprised when I read this morning that they're already starting to fire staff members over at the RNC. Laura Trump and the new chair, they're cracking the whip and they're going at it. So this is going to be very interesting to see how donations going into the RNC change with this new leadership, to see how they cut down on the cost, office staff and unnecessary people there at the RNC. I think we're going to be surprised at the crap that's been going on at the RNC and the waste of money and overstaffed. I think a lot of things are going to be uncovered in the very near future. But anyway, I'm glad to see that that's going on a different path right now, because, and I'll still say this to people, if you're going to be donating in the political world, you really need to donate directly to the candidate the candidates, plural, that you support. Because even when you donate to the RNC and through the Win Red thing, I know a lot of candidates who signed up for that, and they've got it on their website, and people go through there and donate, and they see very little of the money that's actually donated to them through the Win Red program. So if your candidate has a direct link on their website or gives you a QR code to be able to donate to their campaign, definitely do that. And definitely be mindful of the fact, if your candidate has a primary, they're going to need money to prepare for that. And then when the general election comes along, they're going to need money to fight for all of that. The outside sources and PACs, on the Democratic side, on the Republican side, but the Democrats do it much better. They can pay for and distribute whatever they want about a candidate and fight for their Democratic candidate and put complete lies out about the Republican opposing them, which is exactly what they did here in Arizona during the 2022 election cycle when I was running. They were putting out postcards, which they sent out multiple times from the primary to the general, of January 6th with my face plastered on it, and that I'm an insurrectionist. I wasn't even in DC. They also put out that Trump endorsed me because they knew that the independent voters here in Arizona in the 2022 cycle were a little more anti-Trump. And so they put out that he'd endorsed me. I wasn't endorsed by Trump. They tried to do cancel culture things. And it's amazing, in a small legislative district like LD9 in Arizona, for the 2 House and the state Senate positions, the Democratic Party poured about $2.5 million into this campaign in the 2022 cycle. So we've got to help our candidates out, folks. And if you want to help me, you can go to Mendoza for Arizona, everything spelled out, no numbers, no letters, no abbreviations, .com, and donate to my campaign, because I'm going to have a tough general election against the 2 Democrats that are running. Anyway, I'm thankful that you all joined us today. Tomorrow we have Suzanne Monk, and she is a January 6th expert, and with all of the people still sitting and languishing in jail. So we're going to have a great conversation with her tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you for joining me today.